afternoon, Ali. Welcome to my home. My name is Momodou Semega Janneh. I'm a Gambian that left the country a long time ago, back basically in the 70s. I'm the son of Bio Semega Janneh and brother of Hatib, Surahata, and Jibu, and so on, that would be better known than myself. I've lived out of the country for a long time. I came back and started building back in 2000 and started up a boating company for taking the tourists around, and also built this place for myself as a retirement home and as a way of preserving the cultural heritage of what we have and the forests and so on in our areas.
So basically, Sanyang, especially this side, is among the areas that is said to be part of the port expansion area. Quickly take us through what has government actually done to officially notify you, and what impact would it have, especially that you've invested a lot on this particular area.
Well, people like myself that had bought our lands and moved in and built our places have not actually been contacted up till now by any government official. They have had conversations with the villagers that originally owned the area. But as far as us people that came subsequent and invested in the area, we have not had any form of consultation, unless, like myself, I make sure I attended the village meetings. But that is not the same as being able to air one's opinion and one's argument as to what the situation is and why there's a disparity of what is being done and what the law requires for the ministry to do.
Basically, you made mention of the government actually only having conversation with the initial owners of this place. Do you think that is a right way to do? And moving forward, what has transpired between you and then the original landowners in terms of their negotiation or their conversation with the government?
Well, basically, I mean, it is wrong for them, for the officials. I wouldn't actually blame the government as such, because I think what it is the ports authority that had actually done a lot of this outreach. And initially, I mean, they came with cameras and everything else and held a meeting at the school with the marching bands, etc. So there was a lot of joy and pleasure that there was development coming into the area. But as to whether or not they did consult the people that are living in the areas that were initially going to be affected, because initially what it was that they were talking about was the area by the sea, and then all of a sudden the director went on to the Peter Gomez show, Coffee Time, and actually said, I think at the time, that they were looking at taking everything up to the highway, which really, I mean, like I said, told you before, that's the size of land of the whole of Banjul, from the ports all the way to Denton Bridge. And that was going to really impact a lot of people, because, I mean, one of the things they've been saying is that it's only about 400 odd, I think 460 compounds that were going to be affected. And that's one of the reasons I said for you to come in and drive all the way here, because then you will see for yourself that there is far more than 1,000, 2,000 compounds in the area. So that was one. But what would then happen is that we actually did get together with the villagers. And we've been sort of like working together. We've been trying to make sure that there is a fairness in a lot of what is being done, because it was then obvious that it wasn't just going to be a one-sided issue, that there was going to be a lot of impact as far as the cultural heritage sites. Like, for instance, down the road, you've got the area called Berewilling, which is one of the places that they carry out some of the rites of manhood for some of the kids. And also you've got the mangrove areas, and you've got a number of beach bars, restaurants that are, if not owned by Gambians, they were owned by people that were bringing in a lot of employment into the area, and also a lot of opportunity. Because one of the things that has happened a lot is that a number of people from the area actually managed to get people to help them to go abroad, and they've been helping as part of the people that have been sending, what I think is 700 million or 700, right? per year, and that is been beneficial to the society as a whole. So I think it is one of those things that has actually helped in that the whole lot try to work together rather than trying to. I think the Mandinka word is jamfa, because whenever something like that happens, it does then break up whatever arguments one is going to be having, and then you're fighting each other. And I think that's one of the things that did mean that they've had to take steps back, because instead of finding people that were pliant to their wishes to just manipulate the system, they found people that were ready to say, well, this is our rights. This is what we need to do. This is why you need to compensate. And for me, I think one of the things that they're still not saying is that the initial Turkish company that they were talking about, Al Bayrak, was saying that they were going to have a mining operation and they were going to be doing this, they're going to be doing that, they're going to be. And this was back in 2003 when they told us that they were going to build the port and have it ready by 2025. Sorry, not 2003, 2023. That the port will be ready and operational in 2025. I could not stop myself laughing, because I mean that was the most ridiculous thing that you can think of, because the sea around here is only about 4 or 5 meters deep until you get to about 10 kilometers offshore. To get to a deep water part of the thing, you would have to go about 17, 25 kilometers out to sea. And for them to say that to dredge the channel into Banjul is too much work does not make sense. So it meant that I was a little bit suspicious of their motivations. So I think for me, it then meant that I had to look at more of what they were looking at as far as the mining operation was concerned. I don't know if you're aware that there was actually a train line that used to run in the Gambia before. Right, there was a train line that ran specifically from just behind, when we went around the back of the compound, where the water is, the train line actually departed from there to Banjul and went all the way to the ports, and they were using it to export the ilmenite. So that is basically one of the main things that I think they are after, and it is important that it is addressed, that if it does then go through the parliament and through Ministry of Finance and so on, that then whatever income is coming in is getting to the Gambian coffers rather than to individuals' pockets.
So from your own assessment, how many private owners, property owners, stand to be affected if this port expansion project kickstarts?
Well, if they revert back to the original area that they were looking at, I would say about 3,500 plus. Because, so not everybody has built, but people had invested to buy their lands long time ago. And you've got the people, women that are doing their agriculture, farming, growing their vegetables, growing rice, and so on. That has been going on in the area for years and years and years. All of those are going to be affected. I mean, they've been badly impacted by the sand mining already anyway. So the areas that they've farming is getting less and less and less. So the area that they initially said they were going to take was going to be thousands and thousands of people's properties. We've managed to talk with the villagers, and they've said that they will be looking at the possibility of that if government must take their properties, that they can try and take the area that is on the coast, because a port is something to deal with the water, and a little bit of land for the whatever they've got to build out of the thing. So they've got a large section that was initially being mined, that they can move to that. But I mean, the fact that they were talking about for the port rather, the fact that they were talking about the mining, and that they were talking about building an estate, housing estates, that you can imagine demolishing this house to build a house for somebody else to come in and live in. The injustice of just thinking of it is beggars belief. And I think that is one of the things that, because people just seem to drive past, they see a lot of trees and a lot of forest, then they think, there's nobody living in this place. It's the same as when the Europeans first arrived at some of the places. Oh, it was unoccupied. How about the people that live there? So, I mean, it was just because it was not what you were expecting of development and so on, doesn't mean that other people are not happy to live in the environment that they're in.
So, from your own conversations or with the community engagement that they have had, is there anything like compensation that was made mention in the during their dialogue?
In the initial stages, no. Basically, it was meant to be a thing to railroad people to believe that its government can come in and take, and they will take whatever they wanted without anything coming out of it. I mean, the Oslot that had bought our places, we managed to get our group together back. Well, to tell you how little I trusted the process, we set up our own legal fighting fund back in January 2024. So basically, within months of government saying that they were looking at Sanyang ports, and the way that it was being done, I became immediately suspicious because of the fact that for me, I've always lived by the thing that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And if something does sound too good to be true, then just have a closer look as to what the possibilities are and what the dangers are. And so really, I mean, we've actually been quite ready for them for when they do come. I mean, I know you know a couple of members of my family that are lawyers, but because I had to convince others that there's a likelihood of a legal need, I then had to take the services of Antuman Gay and Ami Bensouda, that to make sure that we did have representation that is needed, that can be sort of like forefront in our protection of our rights. I pointed out to the villagers and others that are in the round that if they were to, government wanted to take the place for a port, that yes, we have to let them. That there is a need for a port, and they can build a port as long as people are compensated adequately and on time. And none of this issue of what happened with the OIC road, where people still have not gotten their compensation. Or you get people that, well, we compensated X, but Y is saying that they're the owner of the property. So basically, I mean, that's one of those things that this initial plan, I think, was done something like 4 or 5 years ago.
So you've lived in this area for quite a number of time, and obviously you're able to tell how many people actually depend on this area, especially in terms of their livelihood. Now, if this project actually happened to materialize, how many people would be affected?
If it was to materialize the way they were initially planning, it will be thousands. It will be thousands, because all the beach bars and all the restaurants and people that are doing excursions, not just people that are living in the area, but people that are doing these Land Rover safaris. You've got the green tourist taxis. Even though the road is this bad now, I'm sure you came across a few excursions coming down towards the beach. You have the same thing, that you have a lot of people in the area that come down over the weekends to have their beach parties and so on. So I'm talking about like really like thousands and thousands of people come over the weekend to spend the time here. So there was going to be a huge impact. If they do go to the area that was mined before, then it is a slightly different matter. Then, of course, people that were not built that much, it becomes a different kettle of fish. But when you become a little bit suspicious as to their motives, when the Swami housing estate, which is at the end of this road here, is excluded, deliberately excluded. And then they turn around and say, well, we're going to take land that is 4 kilometers away from the sea because we need it for something to do with the sea. When there's a property that's like starts about 300 meters from the sea, and they're saying that that place is excluded, that tells you immediately that there's some nefarious reasoning in their way of thinking. I mean, right now we've got millions being spent on this road being concreted. For me, government would have said, look, stop that if they were looking at doing ports, because the port strokes will need a stronger road than what is being constructed now. So it doesn't make sense that they will continue with that. For me, I am still of the opinion that they want to take the place because they think that they're better Gambians, they're better human beings than the rest of us that have invested our money to build our places. And I think they're backing on a wrong horse there with their betting, because the people are ready to sort of defend their properties.
So talking about the environment, what is the environmental assessment you've actually done to determine the impact of the ports on the local communities, the beach owners, and then the natural ecosystem? Cognizant of the fact that you've actually you're trying to preserve the ecosystem.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, the government, as it stands, has gotten the whole process of this type of compulsory purchase processes, which is what it would technically be. Is I think in the Gambian constitution, it's called land acquisition for public use. They've got that one back to front. In that they should have done environmental impact assessment to start with. But 2023, they came down with drones and they were flying around and scanning and taking pictures and stuff. When people that were likely to be affected or tried to approach them, they basically shut them down and just moved on. So it was a case of like, this is too important for you type attitude. And I think that is one of those things that has people like myself a little bit suspicious as to their motivations. Because I mean, if they came and said, okay, this is what the Constitution said, this is what we wanted to do, this is why we are doing it, and it is all above board, it then becomes a different matter. I mean, like for instance, one of the compounds that Yahya Jammeh had demolished when he was looking at doing the OIC hotel complex and so on down the road here, one of them was mine. I approached them, and well, I'm sure you remember in those days, when they tell you if Yahya Jammeh takes your property, you're supposed to walk away, otherwise he's going to cut you up and feed you to the crocodiles. I kept on and on and on and on till they decided that they're going to compensate me with some land near to, is it Bruceby? Not Bruceby, Salaji. I went there to have a look and I found that it actually was somebody else's property that was demolished. And I turned around and said, no, I'm not going to take it. I would rather lose what I've got than take somebody else's property. And that's one of those things that we used to have in Gambia, where people were ready to stand up for what is right. But when so you get officials and so on that are looking at just grabbing, and they don't care the fact that no matter how much they grab, you're going to have to leave it behind when you go to make your maker. No matter how much you pray per day or how much you fast, if you've lived a life where your whole life was funded by wrongdoing, I don't think that those prayers are going to open the gates of heaven for you. And I think that's one of the things that people are forgetting now. People are getting so materialistic that it is really bad. The environment aspect as well, the same thing. Right now, if you look the area around Senegambia, there was all that forest that was there from going from Senegambia to Palmarima. All that has been cut, and now you've got concrete jungle. People are not flying 3,000 kilometers to Gambia to see concrete. They get that in Spain, they've got that in south of France, they've got that in Las Palmas. Why do you think the tourism is far greater now in Cape Verde, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana? Those people used to come here for help to do some training with us as to what we were doing right as far as the tourism was concerned. Now they don't need to come back here anymore because of the fact that they're doing far better than we are. Even the Senegalese used to send people down here for to the Gambia to work with us and see what was being done. But the environment, I'm sure you've noticed it around most of that area by Senegambia, Koto, and so on. It's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, dusty. And there has to be a point where people have to turn around and say, look, we have to do something to protect the environment. We have to do something to say, well, we're looking after the environment whenever somebody's coming in and there's likelihoods of funds to be shared out. And the minute they give turn their back, you then turn on and cut down every single thing in the place. What's the point? You're just deceiving yourself, because when the natural disasters come, it is going to be far, far worse, because there's not going to be the situation where you can deal with it. I mean, these roads that you're saying, they're going to cause flash flood issues, because there's nothing for to slow down the water, and there's nothing to soak it up. So when you get concrete all over the place, then all you getting is a canal for that water to come thundering down. I mean, Dakar well, they're down by Pompier. When they built those flyovers and so on, the whole area is a flood. And we would have thought that we would learn that lesson from what happened. There's a whole lot of things that government can do to try and encourage, for instance, high-rise residences, because of the fact that if there's a shortage of land, you don't just stand around and keep saying, let's expand, let's cut the trees, you then start doing multi-story buildings for that is going to be affordable. but not to just keep on say ignore everything and it will go away. So basically, I think that is one of those things that needs to be looked at to make sure that.
Initially, you made mention of having to gather funds for legal purpose in case it comes. Now, what step are you taking to engage government and the port authority actually to actually see the work that you do here and how much more can be done to resolve the issue in terms of compensation, in terms of looking at the
Now, we approached them and they ignored it. The lawyers have written to them and the ports have not, up till now, I don't think that they've given them the courtesy of replying. And I mean, as you can imagine, Antuman Gay and Ben Suda's chambers are not one of those that will just write a light letter. So it would have been polite and so on for the government to reply. But they've known about this that was needed like 5-6 years back. And this is when they should have started any of this process if they were being serious. Like I said, now because of the action with the villages and so on all coming together, and we are now one bigger entity that they have to deal with, they are now having to actually come in and listen. They are coming in and having more and more meetings on a near regular basis. I think they are actually setting up an office somewhere down by the sea, so that they are nearer to the environment to be looking at things. But they are also saying that they are having Royal Dutch Haskoning to come in and do redo a survey of the sea as to what was feasible. I think that's one thing that they should have done a long time ago, but rather than just now coming in and say, well, we're going to be taking this place. If you haven't finished your surveys, you do not start making utterances. You do finish your surveys. The intelligent thing is that you put a horse before the cart. But if you put the cart and then you start tying the horse at the back of it, you ain't going to get far. And that is when you start getting into difficulties. And I think that's one of the things that they had made that mistake of coming in and thinking that they can just walk in. We are Mansa, and that people will just back down. And when people realize that the effect and damage that was being aimed at them, not just us that are at this end, but everybody that has dealt with the places. I mean, one of the places that I was giving you as a direction to here with the Kobesala School, that's actually built by one of the local boys and managed to get sponsorship to give education to the local children. So you can imagine the government hasn't got a school in the area, but the people have gotten together and built a school for themselves. And this is one of the places that they were looking at demolishing. Like I said, if they had, when they first came, if they had come and approached the people, rather than saying, like, this is nothing to do with you, stay away from us, a lot of these issues would have been resolved. Right now, like I said, they've been shown a place that the villagers would not object if the government was to take that because of the fact that it is relatively empty. If they do try to be not just honest with themselves, but not to be greedy, then the people are ready to say, sorry, the people are ready to say, fine, they let them move to the area between Gunjur and between Sanyang and Tujaring. But whether or not they're going to stick to that, I do not know. And I am a little bit dubious that they will, because they're saying that, Royal Dutch Haskoning is going to be coming back and they're going to be looking at the area that's going to be suitable. So it's highly likely that they might turn on at some point and say, well, we think that it's not going to be suitable. But like I said, on the maps and sea charts and stuff, this area that they keep saying is ideal for a deep water port. I cannot see how, because it's wide open sea. You need to build a seawall that is going to be quite extensive, like 2-3 kilometers arc to try and stop the waves, etc. You're then going to be building a canal on the seabed to go out into the open sea, and the current is actually going north-south. So what will happen is, you notice the dredger that's over Denton Bridge. It's been standing at the same place for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's not run out of sand. So that tells you exactly what they're going to meet in the sea, in that they will be digging and the sand is just going to be coming back in. So somewhere, someone is not being factual. with what they intend. If they want to do the farming, let them be honest with the villagers and say, fine, we're going to be doing the mining. So I keep saying farming and mining. And that here's the royalties for what is being done. The people of Sanyang have encountered a lot of things being done. Like a lot of mining has taken place here before, well, like up till from the 1800s. The village itself has not really benefited. And I think that's one of those things that the government has to address and say, fine. The natural justice says that if something is being done in somebody's land, or if somebody's property is being taken away, that they get a share of whatever's being earned. Not just so that like 3-4 people talk with some foreigners and sell the Gambian citizenry down the river because of what that personal gain that they can make. That is one of those things I think we have to start addressing it as a society, that there is more to development, there's more to societal responsibility than just accumulating a lot of wealth for you, your children, and your grandchildren.
So, on a final note, what would be your message to the government in reconsidering, some of you who owns properties on this area, who has invested so much on the area?
Well, I think what government has to do and the ministry is that they have to put themselves in people's shoes. Either those people that bought their lands or the villagers that have owned the lands for millennia. Most of these people, that's what they've been using to educate their children, and that's what they've been using to send their children abroad to some of it back way. So basically, if they were to just come in, like, for instance, when I bought my place, I paid almost double because I appreciated the fact that is what is being needed that is what is being used for what the villagers need. I did not come and ask them to give me land as a lot of officials did. I mean, I applied for land at the age of 19. I stopped at the age of 25, I think, because of the fact that it was obvious. This was like a while back that I was not going to get anything. So I waited till I came back home and I bought this place and a couple of other places. But the government officials and the people at the ports and so on have to, like I said, put themselves in people's shoes and say, well, if I was to spend this amount of money and this land is worth X amount, that would I just say, fine, just come in and take it without compensation? People that bought the lands have actually got documentation that was issued by government departments. If the government departments are saying that they should not have, this land should not have been sold, the government departments should have turned around and said, we are not issuing any documentation. But you go to the alcalde, they give you, who was representing the government, they give you documentation. You go to Birkama signs off on that, give you the documentation. You go to the chief's office, who signs it, stamps it, then you go back to the whole process again, start the whole lot again. So you do something like 8, 9 different processes to get the paperwork approved. At one point during Jammeh's time, paperwork had to go all the way to the Ministry of Lands in Banjul for them to sign off on it. So if government is signing off on those type of properties, how can they then turn around and say, well, the purchase was illegal? The purchase should not have continued, or the purchase is null and void, when it's their own documentation that has shown it. I mean, we've seen what happened in Salaji recently. That's unjust. That's unjust. People are just asking for, like I said, what they would accept for themselves and the members of their family. And they must realize that karma has a way of coming back. Either they directly to yourself or further down the line. But people, you cannot just take people's livelihood, people's properties, and just think that you can get away with that.
Well, that was all we have for you. Mr. Janneh is actually a property owner, and he fears that with the government recent intervention, it could have a lot of impact on their area. And the most weird thing about the whole process, there is nothing like compensation that they're talking about. And his message is for government to actually put themselves in their shoe and see the future of Gambia rather than individual.
Yeah, and the Tomu Lamin Geleti, Ulu da Sanyang Janneh, Menda Sanyang Jang. Yeah.
So
tel mu activist leti mil ko mama environment la karola mimu na dandangolti. Yeah.
So recently Kabiri Mansakunda called me for especially port expansion project. Mite munejide as an activist.
Yeah, follow nga minjeje kabiri Mansakunda nyin deep sea port la ko nyi mamandi. Wato Sanyang kul ngamira mojama malong Mansakunda la fa simfal mintala because ni ajibe Mansakunda la fa simfal mintala na thara wala keta aba mantora jamala fena nang ni sate to jang ani sate silal so wala tinda sate mol ani sate silal be ya kata kaje ko ka dulatandi Mansakunda la mi al nako ata sate mol torola ata sate silal torola ata Mansakunda fana torola. Yeah.
So is it an activity demanding for more as an environmental activist?
Yeah, until as an environmental activist until kama mangrove wala mankoti nga mama wala fanala aning oysters aning turtles mimu kutolti nga mama wala fanala because ni ajibe every year sama kono nga almost like 50,000 mangrove propagules ngole resto Sanyang badala. Yeah, ane memmanke Sanyang fondi hani Gambia bantala places like Casamas ngada fo jil beto nka manko resto je sawosa.
So munam itela message odi pour for manse especially in deep sea process and environmental intervention.
Yeah, ndaba min folo Mansakunda wala nyintiko ni ajibe deep sea port ni o fongo jibe ala fanna mume asembo benyenta tarala bale kono. So maybe land area wo nyanda kala milnari mila nako official la nyanda ka shortage aning container londi dulal. So ni ajibe fana Mansakunda ba do ko kakan banku dingol le. So ngalo nyanda kula kala banku dingol le mila nako atela banku dingol kumbondi la te toral. So wala na kabirin yin deep sea port nata Mansakunda ludla follow minta ko iba poro sambala wo fanaldo ni aje Sanyang kol mango appreciate e manso wala nyinte ko Sanyang kol ya jala ko wo ma fon la Mansakunda la fa sambala dame nim poro tata woldo aba mo jamala tora aba banku din jamala tora because ni ajibe école chol ni restaurant ni big ball ni stall meli ba bada kanje a siatale mi al nako banku dingol letam o fanan ye mo jamal employ ni ajibe funding ke jamal ba gambe jam milal nako itata la karambondo fo jita e man do cool soto so ni o kamala fana mo jamal be milal ko ke life risks katani ni ko masido la memo bag weight so bar ni nata big ball soto ani école shol ani other business also bada kam milal nako funding kel ba manka wo karol ngamra is better pour ye encourage than ke discourage. Yeah.
Thank you.